Composition 101, the principles of 2D design. Composition refers to the rectangle of a photograph or a painting or a graphic like the front of a book or something like that. Anything that exists within the rectangle or the square is your composition, and it's the arrangement of images, text, or anything that's inside of that rectangle or square. We're going to talk about the principles that are applied to the arrangement of images and text and pattern. The first principle we're going to talk about, however, is unity and variety. These two things go hand in hand. Unity is the wholeness of an object or the design that occurs when all the parts work together. So you can think of it as everything sort of looks similar in size and color and shape in the image. Variety, the parts are all different. They look wildly different in color and texture and shape and size. Here are some examples. The unity in this image occurs in the lower part of the image. It's all the flowers are yellow. They're approximately the same size. However, the variety in the image is this big red barn. So what makes this image interesting is you have a lot of unity and then a little bit of variety. And if you keep that in mind when you're designing or you're photographing or you're doing any sort of layout, is if everything looks the same, you want to put a little bit of something different in there. Or if you have a lot of things that are wildly different, you want a little bit of something that's similar to tie it all together. Unity and variety go hand in hand with one another. In this particular image, it's monotonous content. Everything's about the same size, about the same color, about the same value, more or less. There's one little bit that's different. It's that little red rock that's in the lower left corner. But everything else is mainly the same. So it's a lot of unity and a little bit of variety once again. The next principle of design is balance, and there are several different types of balance, but it's a sense of equilibrium or not amongst the composition. The first two we're going to talk about are symmetrical, which is mirrored. Everything's the same on this side of the image and this side, and same this direction. Or approximate, where things are very similar on this side to the other, but maybe they're a little bit different on one side. They're approximately symmetrical. So what do you think this one is? If you said approximately symmetrical, you'd be right. It's almost perfectly mirrored from left to right, but there are elements that are different from one side to the other. This bright tree here does not exist on this left side, nor does this building on the left exist on the right. It's very similar side to side, so it's approximately symmetrical. And same with this image by Richard Estes. This is a painting of a reflection, of a mirrored reflection, but it's not quite the same on either side. So this would be an approximate symmetry. Same here. This photograph by Edward Burtynsky. The objects on the left are very similar to the right, but not the same. And same here in this pattern. You can see that things are just a little bit different from left to right, and that's what makes it interesting. So if you have things that are perfectly symmetrical on side to side, sometimes are not so interesting. Other times they are, but a lot of times you can have things just off just a little bit from one side to the other, and that's what makes a fascinating image. However, in this pattern, this is plaid, you've seen this before, it relies on things being perfectly symmetrical from left to right and from top to bottom. So in this case, this is an interesting pattern because there's a lot of variety. There's lots going on, so the balance can be perfectly symmetrical. Kind of ties things together when you have lots of other elements. We have lots of color and sizes of the shapes. Other two types of balance are radial balance and asymmetrical. Asymmetrical is things are totally off from left to right or from top to bottom. They don't look the same on top or bottom or left to right. And also radial images are spirals. Here's an example. This nautilus shell. Fairly obvious radial balance. However, this is symmetrical and radial at the same time. Kind of spirals. It's round in nature. So this actually exhibits an example of both symmetrical and radial. But here's an example of asymmetrical. Completely different from left to right and top to bottom. And this is asymmetrical. So don't get asymmetrical and symmetrical confused. Asymmetrical means they're different from left to right. Scale and proportion. Scale is the size relationship between two separate objects. So my body is this size compared to this room. Proportion, however, is the comparative relationship between objects in the same form or the same object. So say my head is this big compared to my hand. Can't tell how big this boat is. You can kind of guess because you may have seen a barge before, but you can't really tell. You don't know how big it is. And if I go to this next image, you get a sense for its scale because you see just how big it is compared to these people. You see that the people are really kind of in the foreground and they're really pretty small still compared to that boat. You can tell how big the boat is compared to these people. You can tell its scale. You understand its scale because there is a comparative object, people, to compare it to. And same here. This Claes Oldenburg sculpture in Minneapolis at the Walker is pretty big compared to this man and his daughter. Proportion, however, is when something in the same object or image is compared to itself. So say this dog, you see how big his head is compared to his body? I don't know how big his head is compared to my head because my head isn't in the picture, but I can tell he's got a big head compared to the size of his body. And we know Barbie. When we talk about Barbie's proportions, here's a graphic I found online which is interesting. They've photoshopped this woman on the right to fit the proportions of Barbie, and you can see that they're very unrealistic. So her legs and her waist and her head are not the same size as the rest of her body. So proportion is the relationship of objects within the same image or object itself. Scale is a comparison between one object and another. Repetition and movement. This is implied movement. This isn't actual movement, and there's different ways to create the idea of movement. And here are a few examples. This is an implied movement from left to right and from lower left to upper right. All the hands are reaching in this direction. And you can see with my diagram here that even the boards, the way they're laid out, and the legs on this person all kind of suggest that things move from left to right and that this raft might be moving away from the viewer into this part of the image. And we read objects left to right, top to bottom, much like we would read a book. So this repetition of the Mona Lisa by Andy Warhol reads from top to bottom, left to right, just like words in a book. This image by Baja Selmans, this is a painting, and it generally, in my opinion, moves from bottom to top. I kind of feel like I'm looking off into the distance, and the repetition of this waveform, there's lots of them in the image, and they create this sense of movement. I don't feel like this is a static image because I understand waves to be moving objects, but there's enough of them in there to tell me that this might be about movement, and that's what this image is about. Lastly, the visual movement here is from upper left to lower right, and it's because this object is repeated over and over. The last principle we're going to talk about is emphasis, and there's different ways to create emphasis in your image. One is through isolation, by placing something into an area of the composition that is sort of separated from the rest. It could be placement, it could be through contrast, so a really dark image or a dark object in a light image will create contrast. So here, there really doesn't seem to be a point of emphasis, right? It's just the oceans. It's about movement. It's about waves. But there isn't one thing that sticks out as a subject matter or as a point of emphasis. But if I throw a beach ball in there, there are several different ways that this is emphasized. One is through its variety. We have something that's very unified. All these waves are very much the same size and color, but this beach ball is much different in texture, in color, and in scale as well. So that's one way we've emphasized this beach ball. Here, isolation and placement of the hands in front of the sky. They're really kind of all by themselves out there, and that's what creates emphasis toward the approximate center of this image. And that tension creates that point of emphasis, as well as the isolation. The hands are the only thing that stick out past the background. So here the background is this sort of landscape, and here the background is this floating cloak. Here's a review of those principles of design.